Internal Revenue Service IRS Tax News, Tax Time Guide, How to Do Taxes for Free and Get Refunds Fast. IR 2021-44, February 23rd, 2021. IRS YouTube videos. So there's YouTube videos below and at the links, and there's links here. There'll be a link to this in the description. There's a YouTube video for free help preparing tax return. That's in English and Spanish. Do it yourself, free tax preparation, both in English and Spanish, and do your taxes for free with FreeFile, both in English and Spanish. Washington. During this tax season, when many people are trying to stay safe at home, the Internal Revenue Service reminds taxpayers about ways to do their taxes for free online or with help from volunteers. So my general take on this is that you have two objectives for the tax preparation when you're looking for your tax preparation and solving your tax preparation needs. One is to get the taxes done as soon as possible, get the refund as fast as possible. Two is to set up a situation where you might get help for future situations such as tax planning and so on. In the first scenario, if your tax return is below a certain threshold of complexity, which may be measured by adjusted gross income, how much income you have, and possibly whether or not you itemize, possibly whether you have a Schedule C type of business that adds a lot of complexity to the return as well. If you have a fairly basic tax return, then you're probably more focused on the first item, doing the taxes now, getting the refund, less on the second, because with less complexity, there's less need for basically tax planning and so on. So there may be less need for guidance into the future. So therefore, if your tax return is under a certain threshold, then you might want to look into kind of options from the IRS to do your taxes, possibly for free, possibly getting help. So they have the FreeFile type software, which are basically third-party providers that will offer a free option if your tax return is not too complex, typically having then an income limitation or threshold. Therefore, if you're under that threshold, you can use the software. Software is really good, a lot easier to use than trying to do the tax return by yourself because it allows you to go through the interview process, which gives you like a double check, and it also helps you to actually file the tax return and possibly have the direct deposit along with it. If you're more comfortable actually talking to somebody and your tax return is below a certain threshold, then there's also resources where you could possibly get free guidance from people in terms of helping to prepare the tax return as well. If your tax return is over a certain threshold of complexity, say you have like a Schedule C type of business, which can add a lot of complexity, you don't have to get help if you have a Schedule C, but you may want to because there's more complexity. If you have a Schedule A itemized deductions as opposed to standard deduction, you might be at the level where you want to get advice. If you have then your income level just over a certain threshold, then it's more likely that you will be itemizing and so forth. And again, your income might be more complex. In that situation, you probably want to both get your tax return done now, meet the immediate need, and set yourself up so that you have tax planning and resources in the future. You might want to be looking, in other words, into a tax professional to be helping you at that point in time. And again, shifting your focus more to someone that's going to help if there's a problem with the tax return, if the IRS has a question with it, and with tax planning in the future. Okay, so the FreeFile is easy, fast, safe, and secure. Taxpayers who want to prepare and file their tax returns electronically can use IRS Free File. There's a link to the FreeFile here. IRS Free File offers brand name tax software for taxpayers with an income of $72,000 or less in 2020. So they kind of phrase it here as if the IRS is like offering the software. That's not really, the third parties are kind of like offering the software. The IRS is basically compiling that information on their website. So you can go to the IRS Free File and take a look at the software's popular software packages, such as the Intuit software package, which I'm more familiar with, which is TurboTax. And you can take a look at those and others, and then it'll help you pick the right one. And then you can go to the third-party software and hopefully purchase it for free, or not purchase it or use it for free or whatever, and then go from there. So taxpayers who earned income can use File Fillable Forms, the electronic version of IRS paper files. So you can do your tax return by hand, or if you're used to doing it by hand, you could use the File Fillable Forms, which is basically kind of like doing it by hand. However, I don't recommend doing it by hand unless you're comfortable with that, unless you just like, doing that. You might want to do it by hand and use the software just as like a double check. That would be a good tool, but it's a lot more likely that you're going to make mathematical errors and whatnot just with regards to data input. when you do the fillable forms. And also the software has a lot of things in it with the interview process that can catch kind of things that you may overlook. So I would highly recommend using the software when applicable, but you do have access to all the forms, whether you use the free file fillable forms and the instructions and so on, and you can look those up on the IRS website. So taxpayers can get started at IRS.gov/FreeFile. IRS Free File also lets taxpayers get an automatic extension of time to file if they need it. FreeFile is also a way to get a refund fast. Filing electronically and using direct deposit is the fastest and most accurate way to file and get a refund. So obviously they're trying to get everyone on the free file or the electronic filing. That's why I think they kind of pressuring third-party softwares to offer a free file option, even though they're third-party and not really related to the IRS, because the IRS is wanting everybody to do that rather than people trying to file their forms by a paper form, which again, it's becoming more and more complex to do that just because of the complexity of the code. And of course, with the COVID and whatnot, the IRS has extended their push to try to get everything automated, and the free file I think is a really good tool to help to do that. So you want to file electronically to get the refund as fast as possible, and you would also want to use the direct deposit, meaning they're not going to send you a check but rather issue it directly to your checking account. Once again, that will be faster. If you owe them money, if you're going to file taxes and you owe them money, you might not be as concerned with the turnaround time of the cashing of the check or whatnot, processing of the payment. So you might then not really care. You might paper file in that point, in that case, and turn it in. And if it takes them a long time to process it, as long as you're not being charged penalties and interest, it might be okay. However, even in that situation, it's nice to have peace of mind, such as the electronic filing gives you, for the IRS to say, hey, look, we at least received it, instead of worrying as to whether it gets lost in the mail or something like that. So even then, it's kind of nice to e-file in that way. So the IRS issues 9 out of 10 refunds in 21 days or less. So there's the average 21 days or less. That is kind of like an average. So if there is a problem with it or something like that, it could be longer than that. So taxpayers filing on paper can also choose direct deposit, but paper returns take longer to process. So if you file by paper, they're basically saying, that takes a long time, especially due to the COVID distancing and whatnot. So free file and e-file also help taxpayers who owe. When filing electronically, taxpayers can pay with electronic funds withheld for free. Another option is to pay with their bank account using direct pay. There's a link to direct pay here. In addition to paying online, taxpayers who owe taxes can pay using the IRS.gov mobile app. So you can pay with your phone, which is the super coolest way to do it. So the IRS.gov mobile app on a smartphone or other mobile device. Information about all payment options is available at IRS.gov/payments. There's a link to that here. So they're giving a lot of ways that you can pay them, which is nice. You would think that is kind of silly. Of course, they're giving you ways to pay them, but in the past, it's actually been kind of difficult to pay the IRS, right? They tell you you owe us money, and then you try to pay them, and it's kind of hard to pay them, and that's frustrating, especially if they're going to charge penalties and interest on it. So the fact that you can pay them in multiple different ways, including possibly with your mobile phone, which I'm not up to date on that yet, is actually a good thing. So free options for the military and some veterans. We got the Mill Tax. You can have a link to Mill Tax here. That's the Military One Sources Tax Service, provides online software for eligible individuals to electronically file a federal return and up to 3 state returns for free. So if you're in the military, thank you for your service, and you want to make sure that you're dealing with someone or using tax software that knows the special needs for people that are in the military, because there's a lot of differences in the tax code for military. So you want to make sure that you're getting all the benefits that you should be getting in accordance with the law. If you're not talking to someone who does tax preparation for people that are in the military generally, then they may not be picking up some of the things that would be applicable if you're using software that is not specially designed or is not geared with regards to the interview process to pick up certain types of things that might be related to the military. Then you could miss out on some of the benefits that you're entitled to. So make sure to choose the Mill software in that case. So Military One Source is a program refund or funded by the Department of Defense that provides a range of free resources for military members, veterans, and their families. More information about One Source is available at militaryonesource.mil. There's a link to that here. Get free tax help from volunteers in the community. The Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, that's the VITA program, offers free tax help to individuals who generally make $57,000 or less, persons with disabilities, the elderly, and individuals with limited English proficiency who need assistance in preparing their taxes. So if you're saying, hey, look, this online thing is great, you got those free file and free file fillable forms, but I'd really like to talk to somebody. You're not like an online, whiz, then you might be able to then go to the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, look for that and see if you can find one near you, and they might be able to help with tax preparation, once again, hopefully for free. So the Tax Counseling for the Elderly, the TCE program, also offers free tax help to taxpayers, particularly those age 60 or older. So if you're 60 or older, then you can look at the VITA, but you might then want to be looking for, if applicable, or if you can find one, the TCE, which is the Tax Counseling for the Elderly. And one reason there is kind of like the military, but possibly not as much so. People that are over a certain threshold have different tax needs. The types of income that are going to be gotten there, like Social Security and whatnot. People that deal with tax returns that are typically over a certain age will be more accustomed to the types of things that will occur for tax returns in that category. If you're talking with a tax professional that typically deals with younger people a lot, they may not be picking up as easily things that might be applicable for people that are over a certain threshold. So for over 50 years, volunteers have prepared tax returns in communities across the country. Each filing season, tens of thousands of dedicated VITA/TCE volunteers prepare millions of federal and state returns. Last year, for example, over 70,000 volunteers prepared over 2.5 million federal tax returns. And this tax season, due to the ongoing pandemic, some volunteer sites will offer virtual help to taxpayers in place of face-to-face assistance. So you might be able to go to a site and still get help, kind of like instead of face-to-face, it would be virtual, so you can think of like a virtual meeting type of situation, but at least you'd be talking to someone in that case. So you might not be able to get the face-to-face, or you may prefer not to have the face-to-face for the social distancing, but still prefer to talk to somebody in like an interview kind of process for guidance. And you might be able to find that here. So those allows volunteers to help taxpayers over the phone or online to complete their returns. While virtual tax prep will be an option this tax season, some VITA and TCE sites will still offer in-person free tax help. Obviously, a lot of people, I think, in that category, if there's not a risk of COVID, if you've got the shots and whatnot, they would like to go in and talk to someone about it. And so there might be options to do that shortly, of course. So, however, safety and social distancing will be emphasized. So again, hopefully at some point pretty soon, the shots will be out, possibly vaccines and whatnot, and then people that want the assistance that would be in person may be more able to do that. But again, make sure you're taking the necessary precautions and whatnot. So IRS certified VITA and TCE volunteers are trained to help taxpayers claim the tax credits they are entitled to, such as the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit and credit for other dependents. So these are going to be credits that are refundable credits, and they're typically going to be applicable with people that are under a certain threshold of income. Refundable meaning you're going to get money even though it's not really a refund. It's more like a benefit program or something, a social safety net type of program. They're kind of complicated to calculate, the earned income tax credit and these child tax credit. The refundableness of them make them actually fairly complicated. So it could be nice to get assistance in properly picking up or filling out forms, because actually low income tax returns, because of credits like these, which are good, because they're going to provide more benefit, can actually be more complex in some ways. So help could be a good thing, but the tax software is also a good tool for helping out with it as well, because the interview process will typically help to fill out things like refundable credit forms as well. So the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC, is a significant tax credit for workers who earned $56,844 or less in 2020. The IRS estimates 4 out of 5 eligible taxpayers can claim and get The EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit, nationwide in 2020, around 25 million taxpayers received over $62 billion in EITC Earned Income Tax Credits. The average EITC Earned Income Tax Credit amount received was $2,461 per return. I think that average is a little bit deceiving because obviously, the average for all returns isn't 2,461. That average must be based on the people that are actually claiming the Earned Income Tax Credit. So that's my interpretation of it. So of the people that are claiming the Earned Income Tax Credit, meaning people that are eligible due to having an earned income below a certain threshold, then I think that's what that means. It's my interpretation. The average would be that 2,461. So in any case, it can be a significant credit when applicable. So the EITC Earned Income Tax Credit is worth as much as $6,660. So it could be as high as $6,660 to get to that maximum threshold. It would be for a family with 3 or more children, or up to $538 for taxpayers who do not have a qualifying child. So in other words, the Earned Income Tax Credit is actually based on earned income. So it actually goes up as your income goes up, which is funny because normally as your income goes up, you owe more taxes, which means from a tax standpoint, you're worse off. But they're trying to incentivize earnings. So therefore, as your earnings go up, Earned Income Tax Credit goes up to a certain threshold. The other key component is dependents. So qualifying children typically, and if you have three would be the max. So then it would still be beneficial up to 3. If you have more than 3, you're probably not going to get any more benefit from anything after that point in time. And so the max could be, if there's 3 children and you had the max income, the $6,660. If you don't have any children, the max is going to be much lower at the $538 for taxpayers who do not have a qualifying child. So new this tax season, taxpayers can use the 2019 earned income to figure their 2020 EITC, the additional child tax credit, if their 2019 earned income was more than their 2020 earned income. Now again, this is really kind of strange. This is because they're basically saying you can use 2019 income, and they're trying to give a benefit here. And again, this is one reason why you might want to use tax software for sure to kind of fill this out or get guidance on it, because many people remember the earned income the earned income tax credit, the benefits you get actually goes up as your earned income goes up in certain situations up to a certain threshold. But in 2020, people might have had earned income last year in 2019 and just got completely crushed in 2020. They got no income, in 2020. So therefore, if they use 2020 earned income, they would have basically 0, and therefore you wouldn't get any earned income tax credit because you had 0 earned income. But due to the fact, this is my interpretation, that it's not anybody's fault that you have no earned income in 2020 because of the COVID thing, then they're letting you use 2019 earned income basically if it was higher than 2020, which is weird again, because normally you wouldn't want to have the higher income to use, because normally for taxes you want lower income because that means you pay less taxes. But with regards to the earned income credit, you actually want some of the earned income up to a certain threshold. Therefore, you're going to have to check. You can check if the 2019 earned income would result in a higher earned income tax credit. And so when you're filling out the tax software or talking to someone about it, if you're applicable to the earned income tax credit, if that applies to you, make sure you're checking if 2019 earned income could be used and if that would be resulting in a higher credit. So to qualify for the EITC, people must have earned income. So this option may help workers who earned less than 2020 or receive unemployment income instead of their regular wages get bigger tax credits and larger refunds in the coming year. Also, any economic impact payments received are not taxable or counted as income for purposes of claiming the earned income tax credit. So when you start talking about you have now earned income taxes, then you get into the question of, well, what kind of income is earned income and whatnot? And note, you might ask, well, I got an economic impact payment this year. Is that earned income? And it's not earned in. It's not something you're going to be taxed on. So the economic impact payment, the stimulus payments that came out round 1 and round 2 do not count towards earned income and are generally not taxable as well. So eligible individuals who did not receive the full amounts of both economic impact payments may claim the recovery rebate credit on their 2020 tax return. See IRS.gov/RRC. There's a link to that here for more information. So the economic impact payments round 1 and round 2 went out in the year. That's basically a prepayment of what we're thinking of as a credit that would be on the 2020 tax return that will be filed in 2021. If those economic impact payments were correct, then you don't need to do anything, and everything should roll forward. It shouldn't have a big impact on your tax preparation. However, if they were wrong or you didn't get them and should have, then the remedy for that is to file your 2020 tax return and claim the recovery rebate credit, which is basically the economic impact payment. The economic impact payment, in other words, being the prepayment for the recovery rebate credit. When might they have gotten it wrong? Well, they based the economic impact payments on 2019 numbers as an estimate, and they're really on 2020 numbers, right? So if in 2019, for example, you were claimed as a dependent because you're like a student possibly or something in the prior year, and you're not a dependent in 2020, then you may not have received anything with regards to an economic impact payment, but possibly should have due to the fact that you were not a dependent in the tax year applicable, 2020. The IRS thought you were a dependent due to the fact that you filed the 2019 return as a dependent, and that's what they based the prepayment on. Or the IRS might not have the information for you because you didn't file a tax return, and possibly they didn't send out anything, in which case then you would have to file the 2020 tax return in order to pick up the economic impact payment. Or your income for 2019 may have been above the threshold so that your economic impact payment would be decreased, would be lesser than the full amount. But in 2020, the COVID thing completely crushed your income, right? So in 2020, which is the year the actual payment's going to be based on, you didn't have that income. So maybe they gave you a lesser amount of the income because it was estimated on your prior year income and there was a phase out, and therefore in 2020 you should have a higher amount possibly. So those are some scenarios that could result in needing to file so that you get the recovery rebate credit. So the VITA and TCE programs can help answer many EITC, that's the Earned Income Tax Credit questions, and help taxpayers claim the credit if they qualify. Taxpayers may also use the IRS.gov EITC assistance to help them determine their eligibility. So you can use the EITC assistance, which will kind of help you to determine whether or not you qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is a great tool. However, it's not really everything you need, because obviously qualification for the credit is one component, but the other complicated component of it is how much is the credit, actually calculating the credit, which we see has many different components to it, right? The income level, earned income, and you can use 2020 earned income or 2019 earned income, and then how many qualifying children you have, and so on and so forth. So the tax softwares, you really want to kind of have tax software most likely to be calculating the actual amount of the Earned Income Tax Credit. To find the nearest VITA or TCE site, taxpayers can use the VITA and TCE locator tool. There's a link to that here, available on IRS.gov. Downloaded the IRS mobile app at IRS.to-go, or call 800-906-9887, 800-906-9887. Help to other languages, so there's Chinese, Cantonese, Hindi, Korean, Mandarin, Russian, Spanish, Tagalog, and Vietnamese. If I didn't say those correctly, I apologize. Is also available to select locations across the country. The locator tool indicates where these services are offered. Please note that some VITA/TCE sites are not operating at full capacity this year, and others are not opening. But the locator tool is updated through the tax session, so taxpayers can check if they don't see the nearby sites listed. So because of the social distancing and whatnot, unfortunately, some of these services are not as available possibly in the current year. But again, hopefully vaccines are going to go out, and hopefully this becomes a safer deal so that people can interact and get tax help. But again, maintain what, the regarded distancing and whatnot. So get more help. Taxpayers can find answers to questions, forms, and instructions, easy to use tools online at IRS.gov. No appointment required and no waiting on hold. This is a part of the series called the Tax Time Guide. There's a link to the Tax Time Guide here, focusing on helping people file a federal tax return accurately and efficiently. Additional help is available in Publication 17, Your Federal Income Tax. There's a link to that here. There'll be a link to this in the description.